Our next speaker was actually on the DefCamp stage 2 years ago. And today he's coming to us with a different story. He has tons of InfoSec experience and some really great insights to share with you. So please do, take notes, take pictures, whatever you'd like, so you can take this with you and make the most of it after DefCamp. So it is my pleasure to welcome on stage Steve McGregory from Ixia Keysight Business. Let's give him a good welcome.
Thank you. All right. Hello. Good afternoon. Appreciate you joining. Good to be here. Really excited. I run a security research team at Ixia Keysight Business. They're based here in Romania. I spent the week with them. Beautiful week. Thank you for the weather. The team, we work on test and measurement. We do security research, and we build products that perform security testing on network equipment, security products. And personally, I'm a father and backyard again, which means basically I like to go out into the farm and do other things outside of the city. 2 years ago, I was here. I wanted to express something, and this is a continuation of my journey in cybersecurity. I have done intrusion prevention systems. I've worked in IT. I've done R&D throughout networking, building network management systems, and the last 10 years building security products. And throughout my career, what I've noticed is well, I'm pretty disgruntled, like probably a lot of you, but the industry kills me. And so I'm going to just go back. I have nothing against Metasploit. There is nothing against sharing is caring. That's not really what I'm going to say is wrong. The problem is that the industry, the way we do things, tends to leave a lot of people behind, and they get hacked. So when Metasploit has a module that can be exploited, it tends to be available to anyone, and somewhere in the range of 30+% hacks will come from Metasploit modules. And I'm not going to go into the details about this, but the story was that it was an O day coming from my friends at Tipping Point, where I used to work. It's a zero-day initiative. The Metasploit module was actually leaked before it was actually patched. There was a time where this thing was available to anyone, and even after it was patched, as we know, patching is not always easy. Actually, WannaCry is a great example. Microsoft released the SMB v1 patch, and 17 days later, WannaCry happened, killed a bunch of computers, ransomware, really bad thing, and we knew it, but the rest of the world doesn't know it. And so, I have my first quote. Basically, we arm cyber criminals with exploits who then take advantage of the rest of the world. That was my talk in 2017, and that's thanks to us. I'm back because at the end of my talk, I was asked, will it get better? And what can we do to make it better? And I'm on that journey to try and help, as all of you are. And so now I'm back to help. Of course, the number one thing is awareness. We're all trying to do right here. Unfortunately, the rest of the world's not here today. It quickly drops off the face of the world when we leave this room. People don't know what we know. That's a problem. The ability for us to defend ourselves is coming around. That's why we're here. Very silly question. Who do you want to hack your network? All right? It's got a simple answer, I think. You don't want either, but the truth is, no matter what you do, these guys are doing it. Another thing about the industry is we've focused a lot on prevention, and as we see with our products in our lab, the prevention capabilities are not good at all. The best performance in a lot of detection or prevention that we can get from vendors is it depends, some things they can get really well, 80, 90, 100%. Web browser attacks is a low bar. It's like 48, 50% ability to block web browser attacks. This is not what the marketing teams will tell you. They're not going to tell you, hey, we only do 48% of it. No, they're going to make you think they do all of it. And that's a problem because it's not true. And we all know that it's not true because breaches remain, or compromises that turn into breaches remain unknown for months. The thing I've been trying to guide people into, and this is a technology I think that, start off with knowing what's in your network, okay? So what are you trying to defend, all right? This is a great thing to know. The other side of it is don't always count on the prevention, look for detection, and noise reduction. This is something we had worked on previously and came out with some products to try to help with. Machine learning technologies, I find a very positive from them in the fact that they're really good at taking big data lakes, processing, and narrowing down something for you to look at, right? So these are things that we can all do. But there's something else we can all do. And it's something that most of us have never done, right? And it's test. Let me ask real quick, raise your hands, please. How many of you have a lab to test? Okay, that's, generally I see about 5% hands through every time I ask that question. How many have a production network? It's supposed to be all of you, but okay. How many are awake? All right, lunch, I know, just after lunch. All right, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. Very true. How do you know security's working? It's difficult. This is one of the most difficult things to assess security. It's easier to tell the weather. I can just look out the window, right? I know what the weather is. Tomorrow, that's a lot harder for the weather. Trying to assess where you are. How effective are the devices that you deployed? How do you get there, right? It's hard, but it's something you have to do in order to improve something, right? You have no idea unless you can test it, measure it, and then compare it the next day after making changes, right? So the maturity levels that tried to find the most simple one, I've been using this quite some time. It's very effective at we all start at level 1. Great, that's obvious. And level 5 is where we would like to be. The only way we can get to level 5 is if we can measure and optimize, right? So we have to be able to test, measure, find weaknesses, find strengths. Both of those are very good. A very difficult question to answer. A CISO is going to want to know, hey, have I spent enough? Actually, they're going to ask, have I spent too much? Right? That's the likely one. So testing can help them understand that, right? And today we have, as options, vulnerability assessment. If you're looking at your upper, my right, your left. You can run vulnerability assessment. You can do this continuously, do it a lot. It is going to point out what you have in your network. That's very good. It's going to hopefully find some vulnerabilities. We all know patching, though, on the sideline is really hard. It's not easy. You all know what's there. Wouldn't it be great if I could say, well, we are vulnerable, but our defenses are working, or I'll know if someone tries to take advantage of that. Okay, so we bring in things like pen test or red team exercises. These are things that take a lot of time. They don't happen as often, but on the other hand, you get human intuition. Love it. Great, we need it. But you do it once a year, I don't know, maybe, hopefully quarterly. If you do it monthly, you're doing it a lot more than most people. So someone said, and his name is me, the solution to security is automation of self-hacking and remediation. Think about it. Today, what we're doing is at human pace. We talked about machine learning. Machine learning is taking big data, cranking it, pointing you down to, hey, what should I look at today? What are the things that I should focus on? What are the things that look to be bad? Having humans try to do that is impossible. So I'm here to say the answer to our cybersecurity woes will come from automated testing and automated remediation. When you can test, measure, find something, and then turn it around with an automation, remediation, we're going to be way further down the road than we are today. Now, I'm going to start to introduce a new technology that's starting to emerge compared to what you do when you try to pen test. You have to set up vulnerable systems. You have to, perhaps scan your own real physical or services, right? It takes a good bit of time. There's a new thing coming out called breach and attack simulation tools, and we'll talk more about this as we get through. But it will bring in automated testing that's done very similar to red team penetration testing. You can run it continuously, and it will help you measure your security. And since it's automated, it can be run, you can schedule it and run it and do it over. And it can be done by just about anyone. We have a skill shortage, we have a resource shortage. We need something like that. Where to practice? The answer came when everyone raised their hand. Of course, we all have production networks, but if you want to learn, you want to get started, you can work in a sandbox, you can actually spin up servers, you can do this. My recommendation is your production network is where you should be looking. It's where the hackers are trying to get to. Why are you not also looking at it in such a way? So production networks, this is where the war is being fought. That's where all the changes are occurring. These are the things that we're trying to keep up with. It's the only constant we have, right, is change. Every day we get updates, patches, new technology being put together. We have skills, people who leave the company. So all of this is causing us to fight a losing battle today. It's hard to keep up with. Let's get into hacking ourselves. All right, this is where some of my ugly slides come in. Sorry, apologize. I love it. Keep it simple, Steve. That's what I say, but I think it's keep it simple strategy. Ask yourself questions, right? I love to ask questions. I already asked you guys a couple questions. I like to learn as much as I can. What is the next-gen firewall? What is it supposed to do for me? This is a good question. Well, how do you get there? How about a search engine? It will give you some information about these things, and you can start to investigate. What is application awareness? Deep packet inspection. What is deep packet inspection? This is a great point. Many people think that it means looking at port 80 and that's web traffic, right? That's not deep packet inspection. If it's on port 2213, it should be able to recognize it's HTTP traffic. This is a great killer that we're running into quite a bit because you don't know how ineffective your security controls are when the traffic is encrypted, right? And TLS 1.3 is starting to throw in ephemeral key encryption, so you have to be man in the middle. I threw some code in there for you. You'll get the slides. So example, how can I make sure that my next-gen firewall is web content filter? I don't know how many lines of code that is, and someone that writes code all day will go, that's ugly, and find a bug in it. Yes, I wrote it in 5 minutes and put this, but it's easy enough for me to do it. You could write something that pulled down websites, did this every day, cron job. Hey, is it still effective? Our Keysight IT guys told me, because I work with them, they didn't know one of our devices, sorry, not supposed to name vendors, was not working. This would have pointed out. They said it went a month or so before they found out. There you go. Continuous checking on your next-gen firewalls, deep packet inspection, web content filtering. Sandboxing, okay? Sandboxing technology is important, especially because humans get emails. Emails have phishing or malware, files. Sandboxing will check that file before it gets to you. It can also be in a next-gen firewall. They'll extract payloads out of HP or email and look at it and try to find it, right? So how would you go about testing a sandbox? Well, I had a buddy that works with me. He did some testing, so I'm stealing from him. He put a lot of vendors together, figured out from their marketing what they were supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it. We knew what they were supposed to do. There's not the same coverage, right? So this is showing 3 different vendors and whether or not they can, based on marketing, detect things, right? So we narrowed it down to, okay, these are the ones they also say yes. Great. Then we take a selection of different CVEs, documents, exploits, sent it through them, and we found a very interesting one, which, there's our friend Metasploit. Sorry, I got something in the back of my throat. Metasploit shows up again. Metasploit shows up. There's a module. Anyone can use it. You're sandboxing if your vendor 3 did not work. These results are useful. Why? Because now you know that information. That's what's important about it. What can you do? Making informed decisions. This is why it's important to test your stuff. All right, I'm going to jump into who's coming after you and what they're using. And the thing that it always blows my mind when I go out and talk to everyone and find out what tools that are being used and what they find when they do incident response is that they're not always advanced. It's expensive to retool. There's the tools and the software and the products are out there. APTs, Advanced Persistent Threats, you can check them. There's MITRE in the US. Really like what they're doing with this attack framework. The website has a lot of information. It's being heavily used by these new breach and attack simulation tools. But you can go out, you can research, you can figure out, based on APTs, what industry they're going after, right? If you're in healthcare, you're in government, or you're in technology, you can look, you can find out what tools they're using. These tools are readily available for anyone. Right there, Kali Linux, and the big one, Empire. Who here has heard of Empire? Yeah, you probably got it in your network. So, because it's like 70 to 80% of incident responses to find Empire, because it's PowerShell running on Windows, and every Windows box has PowerShell, and this thing's really good at obfuscating PowerShell. There's a percentage, I think, in there. Oh, no, not that one. Anyway, it's all over the place. It's easily downloaded from the MITRE software. You can run it and test your security products. Organizing your testing, this has always been a challenge for when I sit down and everyone says, well, how do I test? What should I do? It's limitless. Like, there's so many different things, and we talk about security in depth, and yes, security in depth is very important, and how you approach that needs some organization. So I like the cyber kill chain from Lockheed, and the reason I like it is because we can start to look at the types of things that happen, the types of tools, products I can deploy in depth, and based on this information, I can start to line up testing matrices, right? Things that I can do. And everyone knows that you want to try to find it and prevent it. And as we talked about, it's not 100%. So looking inside, looking at lateral movement, this is an area I've really been pushing people. It's like visibility or the machine learning, micro-segmentation technologies. These are things that we need to do. And the reason we do it is because today, once it goes beyond your perimeter, everyone can talk to everyone. There's nothing being inspected. And this is why they'll sit there and live in your network for months. All right? So just like I was describing, you can identify these different tools, and once you find an next-gen firewall's weakness, you can then look at different tools along the kill chain, different places, endpoint, test your endpoint. The MITRE framework is actually very endpoint oriented right now. We are trying, since we're a networking company, we're trying to help them do that. So we're going back to this original chart that has the things that you can do, frequency, vulnerability assessment, these things are automated, and then the human-based pen test red teams, and the new emerging technologies coming out from breach and attack simulation. There's a lot of open source options out there, things that get you started. This is the thing that we need, right? Something that will help us test, help us measure, help us continuously improve our network. The solution needs to make sure that you're following the tactics, techniques, the TTPs, that it's safe, right? We want to be safe. It's our production network. This is one of the things that I continuously run into as I start to talk about testing your network and testing production, because they say, what about malware? And I said, well, don't you get malware sent to you and from people trying to compromise your network? And the answer is yes. And I said, well, then wouldn't you want to send malware through your network? And they're like, no, I don't. Okay, you got to get over this, right? You got to be able to safely simulate, send the malware, because malware, you don't want to detonate it, but you want to determine, did my sandboxing technology actually detect it, right? Did my next-gen firewall detect it? Did my endpoint detect it? Don't detonate it. That's not a good idea. But the file itself, yes. And then, of course, we all know that many malware these days, the first payload will not be harmful. So go back into those labs. Get yourself something that you can do. Continuing into how you would test and measure using the cyber kill chain, you can apply techniques to help you test. And I started talking about malware, polymorphism, the things that they do, how they get transferred, the tunnel. They get tunneled, they get obfuscated. There might be some simple encryption, there might be complex encryption, there may be lots of things they try to do to evade. It's important to know how effective, though, is your security controls at detecting such things. Each one of these would require different technologies. Botnets, command and control, these are things that are going to happen. The first thing, as soon as the malware detonates, it's going to talk to its command and control, right? So how good is your threat intelligence? How good are your threat intelligence, your SIM guys, your people who are monitoring? Are they going to see some kind of alert notification that told them, hey, this user downloaded something? The next thing that happened is that system talked to a known botnet command and control system, right? That's something you can test. You don't have to let them hack you, right? You can test it by getting your threat intelligence and just connecting, using something that would connect to one of those IPs, just ping it or something like that, right? So we need it to be continuous, right? We need to make sure that what we're doing is continuous, that we can run it over and over and over. Every time we have new results from our test, as we build up our different testing mechanisms that go through each of our security, it's going to help us understand, where I need to improve, maybe where I can invest. I might have to rip and replace some things. But once you get to a place where maybe you're not happy, but at least you are comfortable with it, keep that comfort level. Make sure that it's continuously happening by running every day. Things that are important for threat hunters, be able to do things like the Equifax or WannaCry, right? These things come out, they happen, they happen to others. If you can learn about what they did and you can use this, and the breach and attack simulation products can help you to simulate those type of events safely in your network and let you know what would happen. So your CISO comes and says, hey, I heard about this Equifax. What would happen to us, right? You can give them an answer. And of course, because we don't have labs and we're always looking at new technologies like machine learning, which is really hard to test, right? Secret sauce of machine learning. I have seen some success from some of the machine learning products out there. They're getting better and better. We need things that help us test them, right? So our production network is there. If you can simulate things as bad actors, hopefully the machine learning pulls that out. Your people, processes, and tools, all right? The most valuable thing we have today, the people, right? So what we can do with our own self-hacking red team exercise, breach and attack simulation, has to help our teams improve. So I mentioned the security information event manager, threat hunter, or somebody that's monitoring the system. You will find out stuff. You'll learn stuff, right? You'll be able to determine, hey, does my team recognize the right kind of events when they come through? And so going back real quick to summarize some of these things that you wanted to get from it is that it has to be safe, it has to be realistic, right? Unfortunately, malware is just be careful, it has to be safe, right? Repeatable, measurable, continuous, like human exercises tend not to be the same, right? But the beauty of a human is that we have good intuition. We're able to actually think a little more crazier than the computers will, right? End-to-end and continuous being the key word, right? We have to get to a point to find any kind of change or any issues with our systems as soon as they happen. These things that go on for a month and we're not aware of it are leaving big doors open for cyber criminals. Getting us to that point, the best thing we can have is an optimizing security, right? Measure it and optimize. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We have time for questions. So yes, let's start here.
What security software is better for automatic security?
The question is, what security products are better? Products are better for
yes.
Automating security?
Yes. And
okay. I have to stay away from recommending products to people. So that's one of the reasons I would definitely say that you need to test. But as far as what can you do to remediate, there's SOAR technologies, orchestration, automation, response technologies coming out. These are the things that are being put in front of you to help you once you find something going on, to try and quarantine it quickly, help your incident response team respond to it. So I'd be looking at SOAR, anything that's going to help you identify machine learning, what you find in your machine learning, tie it to your automation orchestration products to security network. That's the products you need to be looking at.
Awesome. Let's take the next question here. Please keep your hand raised so we can see. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. How do you justify the value of security in your work? Like, can you give some examples? How do you approach it? I mean, there is such thing like automation, stuff like that. But I think besides should be just a good input.
How to justify
the value of security effort? So just something to those people.
That is exactly okay. How do you justify the security spend, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So that's the huge question. That's the big question that we're trying to answer. As I go around talking, I still today, it blows my mind. One of the guys goes, how do I justify that I want to secure something? And I'm like, okay, please help me with that. And he's like, my boss just will not let me spend money, right? And he says, nobody's after us, right? That's happening. And it's really, really hard. The thing we have to do is use proof, such as maybe testing, to show where we have weaknesses, and then take that and turn it into a dollar sign to the boss, right? The management's going to say, these are things that are going to impact our business. And they'll say, well, but they're not after us, right? So we got to get proof. We got to show things that are coming in. So we got to find them. That's the ever
because there is one point here. A lot of people speak about data, so numbers of data, which are just lost or something like that, but they don't speak about the numbers in security. So financial loss in security, it's always on the top page.
It's hard to, yeah, it is. But the most important thing today is your data, your information. And there are reports by Ponemon where it shows the dollar per record lost, right? If you're maintaining customer information that gets leaked, you can go point to your boss about how companies like Marriott cost a lot of money, Equifax, how much money it cost them.
Yahoo case.
Yeah, these cases like that. And of course, technology companies, what's the most important thing? You would think they're intellectual property, right? So, losing the intellectual property may cost your company in the fact that you lose the ability to compete. How you're doing things, you lose control of it, right? And that's going to cost the company. These are really hard problems for all of us. I know. And so, reports like that.
Super, thanks very much.
Yeah. Welcome.
Cool. The next question over here. Please keep your hand raised.
Yep.
Thank you for the presentation. You talked about automating cyber attacks. So, like SOTAC is like a DARPA-funded project. So, in hands of US government, it makes sense. But in wrong hands, it will cause havoc. So, what about automated cyber defenses? Because they are the real need of the time.
Yeah, this is the point. I mean, the fact is, Metasploit's out there, the attacks are out there. The exploit, that becomes public, right? They can use it against people. The ability to defend against these things is what we need to do continuously. And then how can we protect against them, right? In an automatic fashion. We're not there yet, but in order to get there, we have to have the means of automating the things that help us determine where the issues are, how effective at blocking web browser attacks am I, which ones are getting through. Based on the ones getting through, I can make decisions. Do I allow that browser in my network, right? Do I add endpoint security? Do I add threat intelligence? Or, do I patch, right? This is information, knowledge that gives you the right information to make informed decisions. So we need to get to a point to where we can get that information and then automate the processes to install and add, capabilities to remediate and mitigate problems. We're not there where we're automating those things yet, but that's the steps. So hopefully in 2 to 3 years from now, I come back and talk about that step.
Yeah, just
that
for your information, last year, US Army released the model, just the model for automatic cyber defense agent, but still in progress.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you.
We're still early. Yeah, thank you.
Cool. We have time for one more question. There.
Right here.
Why is there only one word about web application firewall when this is a very important thing when you try to learn something new?
Yeah. One more time, please.
No. Why there were only one word about web application firewall?
Oh, yeah?
And when we are trying to learn something new about
How they
testing,
work, or how to test them, yeah.
because web application firewall have many features for
Yes, they're complex.
learning.
They're very complex. Web application firewalls. I didn't talk about web applications. The two primary vectors that we're getting hit are users and web applications, right? So, there's a lot of other vectors, but those are really important vectors to try to protect against and figure out. And web application firewalls are very complex beasts. Testing them is a lot of work, right? So there's a lot of ways you can do it. These type of tools I'm talking about are focusing on web application firewalls. So they'll bring you cross-site scripting attacks, SQL injection. Try to determine, don't use just exploits, right? Because that usually means you're looking for a signature. It's more of a technique that's important. So SQL injection, a WordPress SQL injection vulnerability is a one-time event against WordPress. SQL injection as a technique and how it happens, that's more important that you can cover for your web application firewall is how effective it is in that. And then once you get that information, you can compare the vendors and where you're at and how effective it is. You can start to try to change the coding habits or things like that, right? Product security is going to become really critical there too.
Perfect. Thank you so much,
All right.
Steve, once again.
All right, thank you.